So the problem is that we have a lot of systems within enterprises. We have people within enterprises accessing these systems. They are all working in different departments, and these departments have different requirements and needs that they need to get. And so they are really focused on really getting all of the information that they're trying to get out of these systems to do their jobs. I mean, it's a total mess. And if you think that this is painful to your brain, to look at this chart, I mean, that's really the purpose. This is the reality of enterprises today. And this is what we are solving. The problem is that all of this information resides in silos across the enterprise, by function, by department, by system, and lots of people need to get access to it. We've tried to solve it. And we've tried to solve it by the business intelligence industry, where you get an analyst that is collecting all the data, accessing the data sources, creating charts, and so on. They are always behind, always working hard, and they're trying to turn this data into actionable information. So today, really, you have Excel and business intelligence software, which is even more complicated. But how many of you know pivot tables in Excel? That is not a simple thing. So people are tied up. There are no access to skilled resources. It creates bottlenecks and frustration across the enterprise, and no one is ever very satisfied with what they're getting. Built hundreds, literally, I went into a company that had hundreds of thousands of charts created by the BI team, increasing by about 20% per annum. Whoever is speaking, please mute. So today, we have a solution. And the solution is Quarrio. And what Quarrio enables you to do is to sort all of this stuff and make it orderly. And we have solved two core problems. The first problem is the data unification problem, where we have all of these silos and these systems, and we need to be able to access the data, but they're already stored in their own data stores. And what people do is they put them in data warehouses in order to get it. Well, that data unification problem now, we can leave the data where it is and access it directly. The second problem we've solved is the ability for anyone within that enterprise to get access to that data through just asking a plain question in plain English and getting the information they need and asking follow-on questions on that until they get to what they need. And I was recently talking to someone that said that every single quarter, there would be about 20 people across 5 departments taking 2 weeks to complete a presentation that now could be done in minutes using Quarrio. So here's a little bit of a demo of how Quarrio functions.
So even on my best day, a simple query like that or executing that, of course, like in an organization, you'd have custom built dashboards, but to the extent that you need to make a change or you need to provide a different view, different type of timing, that could potentially take you minutes, right? Or really interrupt a flow, or depending on how significant the change is, even, upwards of hours. To the extent that you're now able to produce views like this in Quarrio, and then also show kind of like the auditability, right, of like how the charts were created. As an operations professional, I salivate at the ability to deliver this information so quickly to the people that need it.
As with Gen AI, you can ask specific questions. Now you can ask questions about your data. The first thing we generate is our understanding of your question. We ask, is this what you meant? Then here's the SQL we're generating. So we know exactly how the query is hitting the database and the exact data is pulling out from the database. This is why you can trust our AI, because the only data it's generating is the results from my data, not everyone else's. It's accurate and every action and result can be validated. Then you might want to ask something related, but very different. I see that I have 191 sales opportunities. It answered immediately. And now I want to drill down to exactly the information I'm seeking by asking follow-on questions. And as you see, here there is a string of questions that are follow-on questions. I can just drill down to the information I'm seeking as I'm going along. This is why everyone across the organization needs Quarrio, regardless of role or department, because we can now get the information to do our jobs quickly and effectively without having to learn new skills or consulting an analyst. Quick and effective information to make my decisions that I do throughout the day. Intelligence begins with a question.
And one really amazing thing here that I wanted to make sure that you touched on, KG, is not everyone has access to all information, right?
Yes, usually the information, you know, as we have, as I mentioned in the first few slides, what happens in an enterprise is that you solve it using the problem using business intelligence and a team of analysts. But because analysts are expensive, these are expensive resources, what effectively happens is that they create standard reports for everyone, and then anyone who has any questions has to get in a queue. The average time to get an ad hoc report in enterprise is about 2 weeks. Now you can get it in a second. And on top of that, what you have is that it's really the executives can get the information that they need to make the decisions. Now, um, trying to move on from this screen now. As with Gen AI, pardon, can ask specific. So you know, what we have developed is a divergent technology, um, and built on top of a coding engine. And really, historically, you know, for a long time, we've had a lot of intelligence building from singular cell animals all the way up. Now we've gotten to the point where we are tool makers, and we have come to a point where we create tools, and these tools are now we're beginning to embed them with intelligence. And there are two separate paths that we're now taking in the artificial intelligence world, where you are very familiar with one of the ways, which is the GPT LMM approaches, probabilistic approaches. They are fantastic tools, but they're prone to inaccuracies and fabrications. And the problem is that you cannot depend on them to make decisions, or to automate business processes within an organization. So what we have developed is an alternate path built on an alternate technology stack, using symbolic systems approaches instead of probabilistic approaches to do that. So we built a foundation using symbolic systems approaches. What this has given us is the ability to create a deterministic system that is accurate and consistent. And you can validate every single thing through audit trails, as I just showed you in the demo. The team that has created this, other than me, I have experience from building multiple companies in genomics, in big data, and in enterprise software. I was also awarded the United Nations Global Entrepreneur of the Year, and the actual design of the engine was done by Earl Sacerdoti. He co-founded Symantec. He co-founded the American Association of Artificial Intelligence. He was director of artificial intelligence on SRI. Jim Cates was the global head of R&D at IBM. He led all software R&D at IBM. So you may know some of the technologies that he developed, such as standard query language or SQL, DB2, and the underlying technologies for IBM Watson. And after he left IBM, he became the CIO of companies in Silicon Valley, such as Brocade, Silicon Graphics, Altera, and Synopsys. And you may know Synopsys because they build the chips for NVIDIA. Sarah Moore is our CTO. She has a PhD in quantum physics. She is one of the most amazing people I know. She is really an expert at building and architecting complex systems and complex enterprise architectures securely. We have to be aware of the fact that security is one of the core concerns of enterprises out there. These are the people who created the engine. In addition to these people, we have patents pending in these two major areas that we've solved. The ability to unify data from siloed systems in siloed departments, and doing that in near real time across a complex architecture, and accuracy in natural language. Now, the technology base gives us certain strong advantages where we are able to scale faster and more cost effectively than any other system, because we just don't have the overhead and the load that has been built by these AI experts. And so the cost structure of Quarrio is fundamentally different, and therefore our ability to really scale and get into the enterprise, which has been a core problem for these kinds of companies, is really, we're getting really high level access across multiple enterprises in banking and finance and capital markets, technology, manufacturing and logistics, and so on. It's really exciting. So we've chosen to go to market in two major markets. We've chosen to go to market based upon three core criteria. And we've chosen these markets because they are giving, in certain industries, you need speed. For example, in capital markets, you need speed, and then you also need accuracy because you're dealing with financial data. You need reliability, and you need and in order to really see the value from this, you need a mature enterprise data architecture. What is supposed to say here, but it looks like it's messed up for some reason in PowerPoint, is that it's an 82 billion annual market between these two markets per annum, growing at 10.6 compound annual growth rate. And then all this technology is fantastic, but ultimately it's about execution. And because of execution, we have recruited a killer team, really. I'm leaving for New York on tomorrow morning, actually tonight, on the red eye to go and meet someone to be announced, who is an absolute star in the financial markets and capital market space, and who has been a C-level executive across multiple areas. I cannot announce his name yet. We have Vince Chapa, who has been a VP of sales, who is our VP of sales. He has scaled sales teams at organizations like KPMG, Softech, and so on. And he really understands the enterprise space and the enterprise, how to really build and grow enterprise accounts. Gary has been in the industry for many years, and he has led global deployments for huge enterprises. For example, Veterans Administration, where he deployed SAP globally, which was a multi-billion-dollar project. And then Gustav, who is helping us on finance and is growing our financial acumen and our ability to look at finance and operational execution together. So now, once we're funded, we are going to continue the existing drive, and we have been pushing for a long time, and we're right in the commercialization phase. The first thing is that we're going to hire already identified executives beyond the ones that you've seen here, in several areas: delivery, customer success, operations, and to really scale up their teams to be able to deploy. And to rapidly scale the team in other operational functions that we will need, like ensuring that the customer is happy. The second thing we're doing is that we're going to close the enterprise accounts that we've already been in contact with, we've already done demos with, they're in our pipeline, but we have a broad area of pipeline, but we're focusing in very narrowly in the technology and capital market space for obvious reasons. And the goal is to ensure happy, referenceable customers. And finally, is to build and train the system integrator channel. They have implementation resources, and being able to scale that channel ensures that we can reach to more customers faster. They already have their own clients, and we have initial integrators in training now already. We're now raising a small raise to get us to Series A. We're focusing on revenue generation and scalability, and we're using a SAFE with a 25% discount to our Series A. The timeline is to be able to do this by Q1 2025, and we have to close at least 5 enterprise accounts. I mean, we have about 30 or so accounts or prospects in the capital market space, and more than 100 in the technology space here in Silicon Valley, because of especially Jim Cates, who has mentored more than 100 of the CIOs and VPs of IT sitting around in major companies in Silicon Valley today, like AMD and VMware and other companies like that. So we have access to many different accounts, and we just need to go in and close. So our Series A, we're raising 20 million to continue to scale the operations team and really scale the team. And you can see here that we've done pretty detailed budgeting in what is going to require to scale the team as we go up here. And this goes hand in hand with how we expect the revenues to grow. We expect to be over the 5-year period about a $1.3 billion company being able to deploy and into this space. So this is the presentation. I'd just like to thank you all for attending and taking the time to attend. I'm super excited, to be honest. I mean, it's a privilege to be here and to work with the team that I'm working with. Over to you,
Thank you
Colin.
very much for the presentation, KG. We want to offer an opportunity for folks to ask questions. We had a question already in the chat from Hank Spraggins, who was, believe, AI ML specialist over at Meta. Um, he had the question one, how are these pipelines connected and how is data curated in a world where fact tables have different meaning across departments? Two, how does this work play out in an org where everyone has access to all data, but depending on the role, it's read only or write, i.e., show me sales by department, but I want to see sales from the Northeast America region, and I'm in the Southeast region. Is it as simplistic as saying, show me sales in Jim's department, where Jim is SVP in the North America or SVP of Northeast America sales? Those are the two questions from Hank. Would love for you guys to address this, and then would welcome any other questions from the audience.
So I'm going to ask Sarah to answer that question. Sarah? Sarah, you on the call?
Hey, it doesn't look like Sarah is on, um, but it's okay. If these for the technical questions, because Sarah's not, it wasn't able to join today, like we have left KG's Calendly in the chat, so people can book time for him and his team for you guys to do direct follow-ups.
And what was the second question, which it sounded like I'd be able to answer?
The second question is, how does this work play out in an org where everyone has access to all data, but depending on the role, it's read only or write, i.e., show me sales by department, but I want to see sales from the Northeast American region, and I'm in the Southeast region. Is it as simple as saying, show me sales in Jim's department, where Jim is SVP of North East America sales? So I guess the question is like, how do you determine regional differences, especially with simplistic queries through Quarrio? And how is that kind of information derived in the system?
The answer to the second question is um, when you have multiple data sources, first of all, the system understands the structure of the data. And in the onboarding process, we map the data for our engine to be able from one or multiple data sources. And so it understands the enterprise architecture. We determined with the IT team at the client what's the source of truth at any given moment. And then based upon that, you can really ask any kind of question today to be able to ask questions. So regardless of which region you are at, or what level you are in the organization, you can actually just get the information you need. And of course, everything is permissions based so that you can only see the information you're allowed to see based upon your rights within that organization. And that's run by, we manage that through Okta or actually or to our tokens to be able to really know who is where and what they're able to see. Did
Gotcha.
that
So
answer your question?
no, I think it so in this use case, right? Because as a manager in one region, you might not have access to like the team or sales information in another region. And so when you ask for sales
Exactly.
information, it's going to give you the information that you have access to. If you ask to see, Jim's region or whatever, depending on if you have access to that information, you'll be able to get that query. Is that how I'm reading that?
Yes.
Okay.
If you can only see what you are allowed to see, but you have to ask for permission to see anything beyond that, either go to your sysadmin or to your manager to get access to other data. Um,
Super helpful. Um, were we able to get Sarah on the call?
She
Yep,
is.
I'm on here, guys.
So sorry. Apologies for the fire drill, Sarah. Thank you very much for joining the call. There was a question from Hank in the chat who asked, how are these pipelines connected and how is data curated in a world where fact tables have different meanings across departments?
Sorry, you broke up a bit. I'm driving, so you broke up a bit when you asked that question. Can you
Mm,
repeat it real quick?
Absolutely. I said, how are the pipelines connected and how is data curated in a world where fact tables have different meanings across departments? Because
So,
I think,
uh,
oh, apologies, Sarah, you're breaking up for us. We'll give you a second to see if you come back.
Regardless of whether we can have that answer, Hank, please hit me up. I'll set up a meeting with Sarah to answer that directly. And anyone
Yeah.
else on the call, we can set up a meeting to handle these questions directly.
Does anyone else have any questions for the team? And I'm sure, hopefully, when Sarah gets some connection, she'll be able to chime back in. But any other questions from the group? All right. Really appreciate everyone for making the time today. Just real quick, I'm going to be posting KG's Calendly in the chat again. Definitely encourage anyone who is interested in learning more about Quarrio or the $2 million bridge that they are raising in preparation for their Series A. Would encourage you to book time with the team. Definitely, incredible technology. There was a question of like how generative AI was going to impact the enterprise, and I know that there's a lot of money being spent in that area to shore up things like hallucinations. Oh, we have a question from Aori. Before I go into my outro, Aori, what's your question? Thank you very much for being here.
Yeah, I read a couple of recent articles that were talking like Goldman Sachs and a couple of other major organizations that were essentially saying that the investments in like generative AI wasn't quite expected to generate a return commensurate with the amount of money that has been going in. Um, and I'm just curious what KG has to say about that and how or if Quarrio is differentiated from those kind of AI miss shots or misfires.
Thank you. It's funny that you say this. I'm I'm uh, so we're in discussions and we're starting a pilot with one of the names that you just mentioned, and they were working with OpenAI before they actually launched ChatGPT to the public. They've been working with OpenAI for about 2 years. They spent tens of millions on it. And they said to Sarah and me on the call, we've had multiple calls with them now, we're scoping the pilot. They said that they have not yet found a good use case to roll it out either internally or to their clients. They have some analysts that are working with the tool now and getting some information out of it, but it has been a deep disappointment for them. The fundamental difference is really between what we have developed and Gen AI. Let me just share my screen here. Actually, let me not share my screen. Oh, I can share my screen here.
Uh,
But the fundamental difference is that Gen AI is probabilistic. It takes large data sets to train. I mean, we're talking about, you know, basically the entire internet to train these models. there's a lot of crap in the models that then has to be cleaned up. So they have tens of thousands of people working behind the scenes to do this in places like India and Africa. And it's fantastic tools for things like doing some research, for writing emails or documents, or for getting ideas. It's fantastic for that. But these people in those organizations you mentioned need to make decisions. They need to make decisions on all levels, all the way from the actual salespeople or traders, all the way up to the CEOs of these departments. And there are billions of dollars at risk at any time. So they need something that's deterministic, something that they can depend on, something that's consistent and accurate, because otherwise they just can't do it. And so that's the kind of technology we have developed in Quarrio, which is deterministic. It doesn't guess like generative AI. It doesn't try to convince you of anything. If it does not have an answer or have the data, it will not answer you. It's as simple as that. So ChatGPT will always answer you. Quarrio will not always answer you, because it will only give you the information available to you from the data within your data source. Did that answer your question, Ayori?
So Aori hit the nail on the head, because that's exactly where I was headed in terms of the amount of money being spent to make these generative AI systems useful in enterprise context. And I think that across various systems, and implementations, including RAG and others, there are various approaches that they try to get to minimize hallucination rates down to near zero. But even that 0.01% chance of misinformation means that you're not really able to use it to make an actionable decision. And so
there's one thing, sorry to interrupt you, Alan, but there's one important thing that we have to really acknowledge, we who work in AI, and that is that while they are using RAG and other approaches to try to minimize the hallucinations, what's effectively happening is that while they're minimizing the hallucinations, it becomes more difficult to identify them or know what they're happening. So more difficult to identify, number one, and number two, because they're getting better at lying, right? Just like a human being. The second thing is that they are the magnitude of the error increases. So it may make fewer errors that are smaller, but when it does make an error, it may be humongous. And the fact that we cannot predict when the error is going to come, what the error is going to be, and how large the error is going to be, makes these types of systems unusable for those kinds of use cases.
Yeah. And again, a future in which there are enterprise resources like me that don't have to spend their entire day in Excel and Salesforce to deliver data to decision makers is an interesting world. One where everyone has equal access to information. It definitely feels like a more productive world to me. If there's no more questions, definitely want to give folks, if there's any remaining questions, please ask away. If not, please book time with KG. There was a question from Karsten, and he says he wants to take it offline, but we can just ask it real quick. He says, "I'm curious about the open source story, but I can follow up when there's time for that discussion." If there's more you want to say there, Karsten, we can have that discussion now. But if not, I would encourage you to book time with KG and his team, because I do think that that's an interesting topic of conversation.
Yeah, it's one of those topics that cuts across marketing, technical, engineering, different decision things. So that's why I thought I might not want to dive in. But if there's anything to say, I'd be happy to hear about it right now. Thanks.
Gotcha.
I didn't quite understand your question, Karsten.
It was just a question about what the in terms of your go-to-market and as a software, what your relationship and plan is around open source software.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another question for Sarah. At this point, we don't have any plans for open source until we have actually launched the system out there. I believe, I'm a strong advocate for open source, and a believer in the open source community. So we're certainly going to go there. We just haven't had the time or resource to do that. We've been focused completely on creating the technology base that we're dealing with right now. We've wanted to ensure that the quality is up to snuff. I showed my presentation to some people before this presentation. They said, "Oh, it's looking rough." So I said, "Yes, it is rough because we have focused on quality in the technology, quality in the team, and we can add the pretty stuff once we get one step further. But right now, the focus is to get into these kinds of enterprises that we're now talking to. And we're literally talking to 200 of the Fortune 1000 companies. And we're getting access on CIO, CTO, global head of data science, COO level. And that is actually pretty extraordinary for a company at our stage to be having these conversations with these kinds of organizations.
And so definitely a follow-up for Sarah, because I think that would love to understand kind of what the future roadmap of open source might look like, but definitely get that the team is narrowly focused now, as we should be, on execution. Thank you very much for the question, Karsten. Any other questions from the group?
Hi, James Hines here. I'm not sure if you guys can hear my audio.
Yeah, we got you loud and clear.
Yeah, unfortunately, I was in another meeting. I could not. I just had this thing in the background. But I have a quick question about the technology. I work with athletes who are looking at both sensor data as well as historical performance data. Does your particular application work with sensor data? My whole idea is we're focused on building a mobile data station that collects performance and training data in a van so that we could capture training activities, review later for betterment, and then craft a mobile on-site data control room that looks at a range of telemetry, everything from road conditions to weather to body telemetry of the riders that we work with. Is that something that's within the wheelhouse of your software?
So we are focused right now on use cases that are SQL or NoSQL. So structured and semi-structured data.
Okay.
We have the capability to go towards log files, that kind of thing, which is what I'm suspecting that you're dealing with. We're not there at this point yet, but that's the next step. Because the world is really changing. And the world is changing in such a way that we need, you have industry of things and so on and so forth. So the basic architecture is there. We just have not had the resources to build it out there yet.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Sorry about that. Thank you. Again, I didn't know that you were singularly focused. I missed part of that, but I appreciate the opportunity to have looked at what I did. I look forward to getting at our follow-up videos that are after this to learn more and possibly reach out. Exciting what you're doing. And as was stated earlier, software delivery and enhancement of processes is just growing exponentially.
Exactly. And by the way, I need to do a shout out. I see that we have some people from New Orleans on the call. You guys gave us our birth. So a shout out to you. As far as we know, no one else in the world can do what we're doing today. We're first, and we are patenting. And so thank you, New Orleans, for birthing us.
And the presentation today and the conversation today really only touched on kind of the initial capabilities that Quarrio is going to be able to provide. The actual end future, once Quarrio is fully scaled, I think it's pretty exciting because we haven't even talked about what can be done on the systems side from like a management perspective through Quarrio. But I want to be mindful that we only have a few minutes left in the presentation. And so, happy to give about 5 minutes back. I really appreciate everyone for making the time, to be here for this presentation. Encourage you to reach out to the team and learn more. Again, this $2 million bridge, thankfully, KG and his team, they were willing to work with Musa so we could at first kind of bring this opportunity to our community. And I think that the intent is to not only, identify investors, but also partners, right? So Karsten, your open source question, Jim, your thoughts about how to expand this technology, past this initial, kind of structured and semi-structured use case. These are all really helpful points of conversation. And so would encourage all those on the call to connect with the team. But thank you guys very much for being here. Thank you, KG and the Quarrio team, for being on this afternoon. This is an incredibly exciting technology that's painting a bright future ahead, and one where resources like me get to add even more value to their organizations. And so thank you for the time.
Thank you all very much. It's been a privilege to present to you, to meet you all. And as mentioned, reach out to Alan or me directly for more information.
Wonderful. All right, everyone. Have a great one. That concludes the presentation. Talk to you all soon. Bye-bye.